What is good, YouTube? Quinn Wade basketball analysis coming to you with late analysis, not instant analysis this time, late analysis. As you know, I was gone all January for making videos. So, I haven't really covered or talked about things that happened last month outside of the rundown and clearly my NBA rookie analysis that I updated this month. But the Cam Reddish trade was something that was a huge deal to a lot of people. When Cam Reddish got drafted, I wasn't high on him just because he was a guy that was a little streaky, didn't really fit in college, had signs of potential, had the size, legitimate 6'8", had the shooting touch and potential to be one of these, ball handling forwards slash wings that we love today in the NBA. My biggest problem with Cam Reddish was his rawness. Inconsistency with scoring, inconsistency with shooting, not a great finisher, not a great passer, decision maker, or defender, or anything. He had a lot of potential. He was a teenager, wasn't even the second or first best player on that team, and still was taken within the top 10. So a lot of teams like Atlanta seen a young wing that had potential to be very special. Obviously, they brought in Bogdanovich. They brought in guys like Gallinari. They drafted DeAndre Hunter also. And, they started finding out, as you see with the rest of their bench, that finding a wing is difficult to find a good one, especially one that's a two-way player. Cam Reddish has everything physically, athleticism, length, size, and height, but the problem really is everything else. And he is a low IQ player. I feel like that was one of my biggest problems with a person like Cam Reddish being taken that high. Not only was he included in that Luka Doncic trade that sent, Trae Young to Atlanta and Luka to the Mavericks, and it was Cam Reddish was this combo wing with huge upside that now doesn't matter much because he's not on Atlanta anymore since he's been traded to the Knicks. So that was my biggest problem with the Trae Young trade was the fact that Cam Reddish was a guy, and at that point it made a little bit more sense because it really was just Trae Young, Hunter, and Reddish. But obviously they didn't work out or play that well at all their rookie seasons to the point where Atlanta kind of rushed it, put some veterans around Trae Young, and then they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, so it don't look as bad. But they also stuck in a situation where they paid Trae Young almost $200 million. They paid John Collins over $100 million. They brought back Clint Capella. They still got to play DeAndre Hunter. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Gallinari. And they got a lot of other young players slash veterans on this roster to fill it out. So this team is deep. They have a lot of weapons, but you can't pay everybody. You can't keep everybody, especially when their contracts actually kick in, which will be next year for both of them. And the rest of them are already under contract. Then the other guys will have to be extended to higher paying contracts. And then you have that Atlanta Hawk problem that I've been saying 2 years ago with it, which is basically is you got to figure out what is your core. What are you going to build and what are you going to become? Are you going to be focused on Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter development? Trae Young didn't like it. Obviously, he had a problem with those two players because he felt like they were so far behind for him to be able to win, which we seen last year. They got pretty far. They was one series away from being in the NBA Finals, which is the championship round, when those two guys really wasn't a huge factor in that run for the most part. And unfortunately, they had to get rid of one of them already, which was Cam Reddish, which was, to me, the weakest link. I know people showed his numbers as a starter, but he didn't play that many games, and that was a different role because the personnel keeps changing on Atlanta still to this day. And also, you got to look at the entire season. When you look at Cam Reddish' entire season with a team like the Atlanta Hawks, his numbers aren't that great. You look at the fact that he played 34 games this season with the Hawks. He started in 7 of them, but he only shot 40% from the field. A good 37% from 3-on-4 attempts. That's healthy. That's above average. 90% from the free throw line, but he only shot 2 attempts. And he also got 2 rebounds, 1 assist, and 11 points. And then you look at the 3 games he played for the Knicks. He only played 7 minutes so far, 30% from the field, 20% from 3, and 4 points per game. The season priors are the reason why they gave up on him. 36 from the field, 38% from the field, and super below average from 3. That clearly wasn't the case this season for Cam Reddish. But it's still that problem with Cam Reddish. If you decide to pay him, he's going to want to prove himself. Like I said, we seen him in the playoffs. He was going at Chris Middleton. He's had a big game. Everybody was talking about Cam Reddish. But that's still the problem because you still have Hunter and you gotta pay now that they paid and committed $200 million almost to Trae Young with incentives, and you just pay Collins and you pay Clint Capella. Plus you still gotta have a bench. This team is stuck to where once you pay Hunter and Reddish and they don't never become much, which they haven't in the last 4 years as offensive players yet, then you're just stuck hoping that they become great two-way wings that play well off each other, can defend multiple positions, be switchable, and play well with Collins and Trae Young and Capella, which the last 3 seasons that they played together, they haven't even been close to that, which you still have to develop a little bit, to see it pay off, but at the same time, it may not. And that's what I always try to tell y'all. Y'all got to kind of watch out with that potential thing, especially because some guys just don't have it. Some guys just don't put in the work. Some guys don't love the game. They're able to make it to the NBA, but they don't really love basketball enough to continue to put in the work to be great. Not saying Cam Reddish in general, but that's what I say. There's so many wings, about 4 or 5 wings that go in the top 20, top 30 that usually be busts every single year. You always have this long, lanky wing that can shoot that usually be a bust within 3 years and out of the league. And Cam Reddish was one of those guys with a lot of those traits of length, body size, can shoot, but never could really put in a consistent run ever in his career, even in college, and to me also in high school. And that's problematic when that's a core centerpiece on your team. And then you look at the last 3 seasons, it's been the same case for him even in the NBA that it was in high school and college. So those are things you really want to look for in if a guy can be a star. Has he improved? Has he got better? What can he really get better at? And do we have the interest to do it? And that's what the Knicks are gonna have to find out. Because when you get Cam Reddish, you know his rookie contract is almost up. Like I said, that's one of the problems Atlanta had. Do we really want to let Cam Reddish be paid this amount of money that he may not live up to? Plus, we still got to pay Hunter, and we still got to have a bench to be competitive. And you look at the fact that they had Reddish and Hunter this year, and they're not even in the playoffs. So do you really want to commit a lot of money to two-way wings that's not really great defensively outside of Hunter, but also not great or consistent offensively, getting on their own shot and creating their own shot and playing off the ball, especially as your wing in the backcourt with Trae Young, which they haven't been great defensively even with him, which is the whole problem why it never worked. They got to be able to score and create their own shot and defend, and both of them can't do that, especially Cam Reddish. And that's why you don't want to pay and commit to him, because he may become it, he may not, but you still want to win now, especially because Trae Young, like I said, is their best player. He emphasized that, and they had a lot of success without Cam Reddish last year, getting to the conference finals and almost to the NBA finals in their first year of the playoffs. And obviously they backtracked it this year by, being out of the playoffs, but the season not over, so they have a chance to still make it and make a run. We just have to see. Plus, they can't make a move still, too, because the deadline is not here. So I'm still low on the Cam Reddish trade. Another problem is the Fournier thing and the RJ Barrett thing. Like, you have to pick and choose who you want. Because, do you want to build with RJ Barrett? Do you want to build with Cam Reddish? Do you want to play both? But, you still got to invest in that. And like I said, you already got Randall and some of these guys. Even like Mitchell Robinson contract is up. So you still look at the Knicks. Is Cam Reddish going to defend? Is he going to be able to score? Is he going to be able to become great? Even like Mitchell Robinson, he was a guy that had a lot of potential and still hasn't even been proven to be a starter in the NBA legitimately, or a defensive player that they thought he would be, and that's that potential again. So it could happen. You hope it happened, but most of the time it might or will not happen. So Cam Reddish is in that RJ Barrett lane where, do you want to keep Barrett? Do you want to keep Reddish? Barrett has been better than Reddish. They did play together on their college team with Zion, and Barrett was obviously better than Reddish then. But you can play Reddish at the 3. The problem is you gave Evan Fournier a 4-year deal, almost worth $90 million. Not 90, but close to $90 million. And that contract gets worse if Evan Fournier continues to play like he has been playing so far with the Knicks. And his contract is now. So it hasn't even got past year 2 because it's still in year 1. and you still got that contract. And on top of that, you still got to hope that Cam Reddish fits this team. And a big problem with the Knicks too, as a team, what is this team? Like, this team was a hungry, gritty, scrappy, feisty team last year. Their defense has failed. Their offense has failed. Their leader, Julius Randle, hasn't been dominant at all this season. And you also look at the fact that, RJ Barrett has stepped it up, but a lot of their pieces has changed of how they play and their style of play. And can they, get something out of Cam Reddish now without stepping on somebody's toes? Do RJ Barrett want to give up his minutes? Do Evan Fournier want to give up his minutes? Will Cam Reddish defend? Can he make good decisions? Can he make consistent baskets? Can he, be comfortable not being a man right away or not even being a part of, this team in the future? That was one of his biggest problems in Atlanta, not being able to score a lot, not being able to get a lot of minutes. And he has that same problem in New York. Maybe 2 years from now, can he wait that? Do we want it? Will he take a pay cut? Do we want a lot of money? Will he commit to being on a winning basketball team as a big time player when RJ hasn't even got paid either, and he's been better than him so far this season and last season, the year before as a rookie? I don't know, but that's a lot of questions. But what I will say, which is the question, I still am low on Cam Reddish. I don't think it's a steal. I don't think it's a runaway move. I do think you can do like a trade where you can use him as an asset to flip him into somebody you like in the future, because Cam Reddish is a guy with potential, and teams will give you picks, salary cap, or they will give you a decent player like we done seen and a power trade in return for a guy like Reddish in the future. But like I say, I still think they did good on this trade because they sent Kevin Knox, who has been terrible. They drafted, but people forgot, besides the Knicks fan, they probably miserable over it. They drafted Kevin Knox in the lottery, and he has become not even an NBA player the last 2 years. And that's something you just can't do. That's a no-no. Drafting somebody that's basically a bust, which the Knicks did in the lottery with Kevin Knox. So that is a big problem, drafting a bust. And on top of that, they had to get rid of Kevin Knox and a first-round pick in 2022, which is this draft, which is the Charlotte pick for Reddish. And they also gave up a veteran in Solomon Hill, which ain't that bad because Atlanta has a lot of guards already. So losing Solomon Hill is not a problem. It's really just salary cap filler because Kevin Knox is on a rookie contract. And then a 2025 second-round pick by Brooklyn, which isn't going to be, we don't know what that is because it's so many years from now that we don't really know what that draft is going to be. And it's a second-round pick anyway. And the Knicks also did waive Archie Giacono at this point, which means he was part of the trade, but they didn't keep him anyway, so he's irrelevant in this trade as he's not even on the team. So did they win this trade? I guess. I mean, you got rid of Kevin Knox for Cam Reddish, who is a better player and has higher upside and ceiling than Kevin Knox. The problem is, do you have room for Cam Reddish? Can he be a part of this team? Is he really a part of this future when this team, which people obviously see now, is trying to win now? Cam Reddish is not ready to produce now. And we've seen that even with Atlanta. That's the problem. This team is still trying to win. This team is still trying to be a playoff team. Do they have time to develop Cam Reddish? Will they have the patience? Do they even want him to be a part of their big future, 2 years from now when this team will look totally different? We will see. Like I said, I'm still low on Cam Reddish. He hasn't been great, for the Knicks as he only played 3 games. And he also wasn't great at all for the Hawks in those 3 seasons. He is better than Kevin Knox. We know that for sure, but we also don't know, is he a starter? Can he be an all-star? It's a lot of guys that we've seen the last 10 years that got 6'8" frames, athletic, and a lot of them never come off the bench, or they just become role players, or they just become starters at best. Cam Reddish been a mix of all. He's still young, still has potential, still, can figure it all out, but will it be with the Knicks? That's the question. Will he figure it out with the Knicks? Will he be a player on this roster 3 years from now? And what type of contract do we want? he had a bad season the last 3 years. This is his contract year, and he hasn't been playing that much. So that just show you he might not get that much money in his extension, and he might not be a big part of this team in the future, especially if he's not playing now. And like I said, a lot of their veterans are already under contract, and this team is not in a rebuild. They are in win now mode, trying to be in the playoffs every single year, which is the opposite of what Cam Reddish needs for his own personal benefit. So keep that in mind if you're a Knicks fan. Keep that in mind if you're watching this situation. And keep that in mind if you're a rebuilding team looking for a guy that potentially could be a starter for you. Trade a couple picks, trade a good veteran. Maybe you get him in. Maybe you can try him out under a rookie contract. And, maybe you can get you a starter with all-star potential, and maybe it can work out for you. I don't see it with the Knicks, but he is a better player and actually a better rotation player than Kevin Knox. And the fact that you got Solomon Hill, too, who actually adds a little bit of depth to their guard position if they want to keep him or get rid of him, too. They can use that roster spot to get another veteran and get somebody else that they like, in the buyout market, this year before that closes. So keep your options open, keep your mind open. Cam Reddish sounds good. He sounds amazing. But the Hawks thought the same thing. They got rid of him within 3 years. So keep that in mind. But his career ain't over. He can still figure it out. He can still put it together. He can still blossom into the player that he wants to be. We just have to actually see it and actually see it for a month or two before we can actually give him, more, hype. But he hasn't lived up to the hype so far. And he was a little inconsistent and shaky in college. That's why people didn't have him as a top 5 pick, even though he had the size and the body and the potential stroke to be it. But now we're seeing why in the NBA, and now we can see if he can figure it out, before his next contract, because he is going to get a rookie extension. We just don't know how many years and how much, but, he will be fighting to be in the league, because if you can't score, you can't defend, and you can't, be a solid rotation player and accept a role, then you're just going to bounce around in the league. And if that, you also may be out of the league because of that too, because they can draft more players, they can get, free agents, and next thing you know, like the Hawks, you'll be on to the next team, and then eventually teams run out that hope, and then next thing you know, you're gone. So keep your head up, Cam Reddish. You're young, you got potential, you got a lot of, talent. You just got to get to the right spot. Hopefully you do. If not, make the best out of the opportunity, because you're still in the NBA. And you might be in here for a long time, but, this is business. It can be ugly. It can be frustrating. It can be difficult, but you just got to keep grinding, keep putting in the work, trust the growth, trust the process, trust yourself, and ultimately, when your opportunity comes, to shine in it and take that as a blessing, from me. So, Hoopers, keep your head up. See y'all later. Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis, I'm going.